my name is Ginger Stanciel, and this is my exhibit, Fashion and Womanhood, A History of Agency, Oppression, and Intersectionality. Come on in. Women's dress has been the subject of admiration, fascination, ridicule, and even regulation for centuries. Far from being simply functional, garments that protect our bodies from the surrounding environment, clothing and accessories highlight who we are by indicating our gender identities, nationalities, and other aspects of our cultural and personal background. Objects within this exhibit are connected to themes that cover how fashion has been used by women of intersectional backgrounds throughout history to communicate the numerous nuanced elements of their identities. Women from diverse backgrounds within Western society have each experienced and explored their identity throughout history in a variety of ways. This exhibit highlights these varying narratives across 4 themes: fashion as protest, fashion and agency, conflicting cultural norms, and dress codes and laws. As I take you through this exhibit today, it is important to remember these 3 key definitions. Agency is defined as the ability to take action or to choose what action to take. Oppression is a situation in which people are governed in an unfair and cruel way and prevented from having opportunities and freedom. And intersectionality describes the various ways in which race, gender, and other identities interact to shape the multiple dimensions of experiences. The first 2 themes within this exhibit are seen in these two cases: fashion as protest and conflicting cultural norms. The fashion as protest theme focuses on 5 objects in the exhibition within the context of communicated political and social protest through fashion. This theme explores looking at the ways women have historically expressed their personal and political perspectives in comparison to contemporary examples. In this case, we look at the late 19th and early 20th century bloomers and the 17th century Guardafonte dress style within the fashion as protest theme. When Amelia Bloomer, a leader in the 19th century women's liberation movement, adopted loose or full trousers under a short dress, this style was later called bloomers for their association with her. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th century, bloomers influenced the dress of female athletes. Bloomers such as these directly influenced athletic trousers, which allowed women to move their bodies more easily, which was radical at the time because women were expected to wear restrictive, bulky attire, including large skirts, bustles, and corsets. Bloomers have since become an iconic symbol of women's rights and protest in a historical context. Now turning our attention to the next object within this theme. The Guardafonte was a type of dress with an extremely wide silhouette worn in the 16th and 17th centuries. This style is depicted in the portrait of Queen Mariana and became popular amongst women in Spain. Sumptuary laws, a form of law restricting what garments, textiles, and accessories individuals could wear, were developed to forbid women from wearing the Guardafonte because the wide skirts were morally corrupt, potentially allowing women to hide unwanted pregnancies. Many women began wearing the style to protest sumptuary laws, aiming to restrict their freedom in what they chose to wear. On to the next theme, covered in this case, conflicting cultural norms. As this theme looks at the ways 3 high-profile widows, Caterina Sforza from the 16th century, Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom from the 19th century, and Jackie Kennedy from the 20th century, had utilized expected dress conventions of widows from their respective time periods to serve a specific dress identity in public. This 16th century portrait and 19th century mourning hat represent how Caterina Sforza and Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom adopted various dress rituals, sometimes called mourning apparel, to convey mourning and grief. For example, artists in the late 15th and early 16th centuries frequently painted the noted Italian Renaissance alchemist and famous political strategist Caterina, featured in this portrait, wearing veils in the color black. Similarly, 19th century mourning conventions called for the wearing of hats similar to this one, paired with black veil over the face. Caterina's garment and color conveyed to the public that she still controlled her deceased husband's land even after her regency ended and she remarried, while Queen Victoria's wearing a bonnet or hat similar to this would not have held the same political implications. This case continues the 2 previous themes of fashion as protest and conflicting cultural norms. Within the fashion as protest theme, we look at the final 3 objects, this circa 1910s lingerie dress and these 2 pussy hats. In 2017, in response to President Donald Trump's sexist statements, activists held women's marches around the world, where many women attendees wore pink pussy hats, first invented by Jana Waman and Krista Suh, to reclaim derogatory use of the word pussy. Similarly, to white lingerie dresses worn by white-appearing women in the early 20th century suffrage movement, the pink pussy hat has become an international feminist movement symbol. However, like the lingerie dress, the most worn solid-colored pink pussy hat only represents some women. While women of color were excluded from early feminist movements and even asked to not don the white in support of suffrage, women of color are similarly left out when considering the connection between women's vagina and the pink pussy hat due to skin tones. The hats also intimately link vaginas and womanhood, which may overlook and further marginalize many trans women. These two pussy hats and this lingerie dress showcase the lack of representation of trans women, women of color, and trans women of color within historic and contemporary feminist movements. And to conclude the conflicting cultural norm theme, we look at the last two objects. The first is a circa 1860 mourning ensemble. In the 19th century, etiquette books formalized mourning practices for women. Inspiring these practices, Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom wore all-black mourning apparel, similar to the garments on display, for the remainder of her life after the death of her husband, Prince Albert, in 1861. At the time of her husband's death, Victoria was young enough that society would not have expected her to wear mourning apparel for the remainder of her life, but instead, her love for her husband pushed her to remain in black and follow mourning convention. The final object of the conflicting cultural norms theme is this 20th century sleeveless pink dress. In the 20th century, First Lady Jackie Kennedy departed from past mourning conventions that expected younger women to practice deep mourning by wearing black for a minimum of 2 years or until they remarried. Following the 1963 assassination of her husband, Mrs. Kennedy, aged 34, wore all black for 1 year and then adopted garments similar to this pink 1960s galanos dress before she remarried Aristotle Onassis in 1968. The next theme featured in this exhibit is, in this case, fashion and agency. This is perhaps my favorite theme as it draws attention to how we perceive historical fashion objects and how modern definitions of oppression and agency influence our perspectives. The fashion agency theme looks at the numerous ways in which fashion has been used to communicate agency in dress practices and how previous dress practices straddle the line between agency and oppression. Shapewear has been used to change the shape of the body into a desired silhouette, yet it sometimes has been mischaracterized as oppressive or harmful. These ideas assume that women have lacked agency in choosing how they dress and how they want their body to look. Corsets such as this one on display that fit properly are not harmful to the body, with some benefits including back support, and are similar to 21st century shapewear such as these higher power short Spanx on display. Shapewear has been used to change the shape of the body into a desired silhouette, yet it sometimes has been mischaracterized as oppressive or harmful. These ideas assume that women have lacked agency in choosing how they dress and how they want their bodies to look. Corsets just as this one that fit properly are not harmful to the body, with some benefits including back support, and are similar to 21st century shapewear such as these higher power short Spanx. The final theme in this exhibition is dress codes and laws. This theme looks at the ways written and unwritten dress codes and laws impact women's dress. Each object represents written and unwritten dress codes, with the suit highlighting the agency 21st century women experience through their ability to convey their identity through dress. Throughout time, society has dictated that women follow both written and unwritten dress codes, from mandated school uniform skirts to social expectations of wearing gowns to formal events. In the 15th and 16th century Europe, sumptuary laws such as this one on display, decreed by Queen Elizabeth I, were developed to regulate what women could wear based on their social class or religion. Then, in the 19th and 20th centuries, etiquette books such as Good Manners for All Occasions, first published in 1904, offered new guidelines for the appropriate dress practices of women. In the 21st century mainstream Western culture, unwritten dress codes can dictate social expectations in different spaces. For example, women are often expected to wear traditionally feminine styles when dressing up. However, these expectations create oppressive environments for some individuals. For example, women of color are often expected to follow different unwritten dress expectations than white women. Additionally, women or non-binary individuals in the LGBTQ+ community push gender boundaries by wearing this gray suit and checkered collared shirt, a style that is typically expected of cisgendered men, may also experience oppression due to unwritten expectations. Thank you so much for coming to Fashion and Womanhood, a history of agency, oppression, and intersectionality. We hope that you come to visit us soon in person, but until then, See you soon!